Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Polly.
Present.
Trustee Lappin.
Here.
Clerk Palovich here. Treasurer Ellery Summers. Here. Trustee Kroll.
Excused absence.
Trustee Reiner.
Here.
Supervisor Skibby.
Present. Moving forward to the adoption of the agenda, I have one amendment to the agenda that's already been recorded online and I believe emailed to every trustee as well, and that is the addition of a closed session to discuss a confidential written legal opinion.
And you were going to.
Yes, and then we're also under, so that will be under new business 10 and before public comment. And then we'll also add under the department report for water, we will add F invoice, an F&B invoice. So those are the two amendments. Are there any other amendments, corrections, or substitutions or additions to the amended agenda as presented? Not all, entertain a motion to support with the amended agenda. So we have support by Reiner. Further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Adoption has been approved. Moving forward to public comment. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment to the agenda items, please stand at the podium if you're in person. State your name for the record.
Basically, Dick Genshaw, officially Richard, I go by the name Dick. Concerning the proposed village for the fire department, and as a lifelong resident of Alpena, I reside in the city. I now reside in the township, and basically my concern is the millage. I normally vote yes on almost all proposals. At this point in time, I really hesitate because of the issues of the costs, perhaps the reputation of equipment and so on and so forth. But I think there really should be a study done of combining the city and the township. The question for Nate, I guess, is we have approximately 10,000 people in the city, approximately the same number in the township. What percentage of the township population lives within let's say a half a mile from the edge of the city township line? What would you say approximately?
Oh, in terms of our population densities within a half-mile radius,
Yeah,
2/3.
2/3. I would say possibly even more. But basically, what I'm concerned about is the fact that there could be a savings, I think, and we could even get perhaps better service. If this hasn't been studied yet, I'd like to see a study done on this before you propose a millage. Where I live, where Norm lives, and where Tom Lappin lives in the same area, I think our service could be better served by the city department, the location of the city department. You go down Grant and Bagley, I mean, the population on the other side of Grant, and so on and so forth, is very heavy there. We have Alpena High School in one area, the junior high in another area. And all the way around in that area, I think the service could be quicker. Perhaps my area, where I am in Wyndham Garden, my area would be better served from the city, could be quicker. Just a little example. When we made national news because Chris Morrison rescued that dog by breaking through the ice and swam across the river, and had that been a person, it wouldn't have made any difference. That dog, when they brought it back, I didn't think it was going to make it. They did make it back, but the coordination of effort and everything, and the people that were involved in that, I mean, it was like click, click, click. It was really spot on line. He suited up, they tethered him, he swam across, brought the dog back, and I'm saying it was a dog, but it would have been a person, it would have been the same results. That dog would not have lasted much longer. Could the township have done that? I really don't know. I don't know the answer. But would they have had the people there to do it? And would they have been able to rescue that dog? I therefore think that, like they said, a large portion of the population of the township lives within that 2/3. I would guess even more. I'm saying if it's half a mile. I know between myself and Norm, where we live, there's a big population of township people who would be better served from the city department. Now, repetition of equipment. Does the township really need the equipment if the city has it? And this should be something that is studied before you propose a millage to support the township fire department. I think it's wonderful, the people that we have on the township. I'm not neglecting the people who live farther out of this radius that we talked about. I think they need to be served as well. But I think one department would be better than two departments serving the Alpena. I consider myself Alpena. I don't consider myself Alpena Township. I am an Alpena person. So I would like to see before this proposal gets made, and I usually, as I said, I usually vote yes on every millage proposal. I'm for everything. But at this point in time, and I know I represent other people when I say this, at this point in time, this should not be an automatic proposal.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
asking you if any other comments from anybody else. I know you're here probably representing the township fire department, but I'd like to see coordination. We have the issue that we've worked on for years with water sewer, water, and it costs us millions of dollars. And I don't know all the details of that, which you people know. But I mean, this is something that, with cooperation between the two departments, with cooperation and done properly, I think we could really come out in a win-win situation.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anybody online for public comment? Seeing none, payment of the bills. Is there a motion to make payment of the bills?
A motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion on the table to make payment of the bills. Is there support? I'll support it. So we have a motion and support. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the minutes, we have 2 minutes presented, the March 28th regular meeting and the March 28th budget hearing. I'll entertain a motion if there's no corrections to either of the minutes to approve them as presented.
I'll make that motion.
A motion on the table to approve the minutes of March 28th on a budget hearing and regular meeting. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Moving forward to correspondence.
Yeah, that heading kind of. It'll be back next agenda.
Correspondence heading is on spring break currently, but they will be returning by May. The correspondence is from DTE, a notice of hearing, and also our good friends at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in regards to the hydroelectric projects on Kenny Bay River. Entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion on the table to receive
I'll
and
support
file and support in terms of the correspondence. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving and filing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Correspondence has been filed. Nothing under old business. Moving forward into new business, of which we have a plethora, is the Alpena County Road Commission Dust Control Agreement. This has gone up slightly from last year, although I would like to reiterate that our road agreements and these contracts as presented to this board are as estimates. And so as we move forward through this year, because we actually had to go back last year with the motions that were made, because we looked at those target figures as non-estimates, as factual figures.
What
So
line item we were dealing with on that?
we're on the Alpena County Road Commission.
I think he's looking for a G.
Oh,
Yes.
GL, it's highways, roads and bridges. And
It's, what's the back?
And that'd be in the 101.
It is
446.
101-446-820.
000. Roads and bridges. Currently coming into this fiscal, we have funding allocated in that GL of $175,000. Annually, we have a 50-50 match with the Alpena County Road Commission. That's just over $110,000. That number remains constant coming into this year. My ask is that per the motion, that if we approve this agreement, that we acknowledge it as an estimate, and that if it's less or higher, that way we don't have to make a second motion to correct the first one. So I would entertain a motion to move forward with the estimate for the Alpena County Road Commission dust control agreement.
And that's why I wanted to find that line item, because I wanted to know what the estimate or what the amount had been for last year, and also how much different it was from the original estimate.
I think last year, I know that the original estimate last year was $28,500, and I think that it came out to an actual figure of just over pretty much the figure that you see before you at $30,200. Is
It was
right.
within $2,000 that we.
Okay.
I mean, it is pretty close. Like I said, I'd like to reiterate the fact that this is presented as an
So do
estimate.
we want to make a motion up to a certain amount, or?
You could do that. You could say a motion not to exceed 35. That way you don't have to come back, but it's gonna be.
And it's the same roads as last year.
It's the same, yes, trustee. Ryan.
Then the ask you, I mean, if we do that, I mean, what control do we have over it anyway?
We don't.
So if we sign on, we sign on for whatever it is.
Basically.
Okay.
We all signed on to something.
You hold the, I'm not wearing mine today, I'm in trouble. Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's just, it would be less work on our end to go back and make a second motion to correct the first motion, which we had to do last year with all the projects, because these are presented as estimates.
So I could make a motion to approve the road agreement with the estimated amount of.
Not to exceed 34,000.
You could
But if
put-
it comes up 3401.
Basically,
Still, that's $4,000 more.
every year we've seen it within 1,500 as an average, either plus or minus. That's kind of the swing. It all depends on a plethora of variables, most of them being environmental. So.
Having dealt with bureaucracies for the last several years of my life, seems like if you authorize it, it gets spent.
So, well, then at least acknowledge in the motion that this is an estimate. That way we can come back with real figures. That's the biggest thing to me. I agree. I don't want to potentially incur a higher rate of expense if we don't have to, but the reality is this is to some extent a known, but there is some variability that could swing the band total. So I would entertain a motion to move forward with the estimate of dust control costs to $30,200.
Make that motion.
We have a motion to approve the estimate of $30,200 for dust control agreement for 2022. Is there support?
Support.
We have support. Further discussion? Because we're going to need 2 trustees after this meeting to sign this agreement as well. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Forward in the agenda. is the fire department millage resolution. Trustee Lappin, do you want to take? Or
Sure. Yeah, sure. In front of you, you have a result of the culmination of several meetings that the fire committee has had to discuss the need for a millage in order to operate the fire department in the most efficient way. Through our conversations, we established what it would be for a fully functioning fire department. So the numbers that we looked at had to do solely with a fully operating fire department. And so what we did is we broke it down into expenditures before we determined what costs what the millage would need to be. We've established that our payroll cost would be in the neighborhood of $650,393. And we estimated our, or at least projected our operational costs to be about $414,900 for a total operating costs of $1,065,331. This would be for the first year. And then what we did is we projected from that point forward for a total of 10 years. And through that process, we figured because remember, there's still one actually there's two millages. There's an equipment millage, which will sunset this year, right? And there is a current 1.5 mils that runs concurrently for another until 27.
The same time as your millage proposal.
Right. So we felt that it would be best to keep the 1.5 mil in place and add to that the additional millage, which the committee feels that on the high end would be 3%, or 3 mils rather, which is what we wrote into this draft resolution. And then that would run concurrent with the current 1.5 mils. And then at the end of that timeline, then effectively go back to the general public and seek one resolution to have a millage for a total of 4.5%. But so this 4.5 mils, excuse me. And so this ask will be for 3 mils, which would create an additional $1.1 million in revenue on top of the already $565,000. And not only does it cover all of the expenses, but it allows us the opportunity to put aside money so that we don't have to come back to the public and ask for perhaps a millage for equipment, or perhaps we can bank enough money that when the day comes, and it will definitely come, where we need to have a new fire station, because as you all know, and the general public may not know, that in order to get one of the fire trucks into the South Station, it actually has to be full of water in order to get through the door. And so there will come a point in time when our physical plant, our infrastructure will be insufficient for housing our equipment. We have been working on an opportunity right now that will help us into the future for a little bit if we go that direction. But this way, we figure that we would be able to bank several $100,000 a year in an effort to forego any future millages, at least any foreseen millages. It is likely that we will need a new building in the future. And when that day comes, we will certainly be able to have a significant down payment and to hold any mortgage costs that would occur. So this is our recommendation. Certainly willing to discuss it. We did talk about whether or not 3 mills was an appropriate millage, or whether or not we could go with a little bit lower millage. We in theory could certainly go with a little bit lower millage, but it would not allow us the opportunity to essentially bank or budget for future needs at the same pace that a 3 mill increase would. That in a nutshell. Questions?
Was there a reason why we wanted to go just for 1 millage that the committee decided instead of doing separate operating and equipment?
Well, we basically thought that if we combined them, and if there was a reluctance on the part of the voters, that we would have nothing at that particular point. And so plus the 1.5 mil does run through 27. And so after 27, then it would be one ask for the total amount, as
Right.
opposed to 2 separate millages.
And right, man,
Oh, yes, by all
and
means.
right now, I understand, I don't remember what our equipment millage is, but I think it's a
0.65.
0.75, okay,
0.65.
0.65. And that's gonna end.
Right.
So right now, we're getting about 2.15, and their total ask here is gonna be 4.5.
Correct.
And so that should cover equipment purchases. And
That-
we've got one on the books that's being considered right now, I think. So I guess the question, did the committee agree unanimously that this was an appropriate level to ask? And the reason I'm asking that is, my question has always been, are we staffing at full complement of what our goal is, which I think is 9
Mhm.
working firefighters,
Mhm.
plus chief and an assistant chief, and perhaps even a separate training officer, don't know. But, to get, but also to get our staff at a level of pay that will allow us to stop being a farm team and start being a professional department that keeps its staff employed with the appropriate level of compensation, and also to have enough staff to eliminate the need for overtime, because they have limitations on how much they can work. So was all that considered in coming up with the number?
Yes, there is a spreadsheet that we worked out, and each year the spreadsheet anticipates a cost of living increase, and there would be enough money within the millage request that could satisfy increasing our pay scale as well, and still leaving enough within the capital fund to fund other things like purchases of equipment or vehicles, or perhaps even structures.
And in deference to citizens like Mr. Genshaw, who spoke today, I mean, we've had studies about combination, we've had efforts in trying to combine the departments, and we've not reached agreement at this level, board level, to do that. So I think we need to, if we're going to build a department, we need to do it in a professional way, and then it's got to be funded. And it can't be funded out of the general fund any longer. What are we putting in from the general fund this year? 200,000, I believe.
240.
240. So we're putting in 240,000 out of the general fund right now. And we've had to do that for multiple years in the past. So we either fund this properly as a standalone department, much like our water rates and sewer rates cover, hopefully, our water system as standalone. So we can do things like better improve other systems in our township. And as you say, our Southside Fire Station not only is inadequate for the needs of modern equipment, but it's also inadequate in its location.
Yeah, well, that's also true at the North Station. The physical plant would make it very difficult under where it's currently located to raise the roof in an effort to bring in some modern equipment. That would be a cost prohibitive process. And so could we use some of the back bays in the DPW currently that we currently have? And the answer is maybe. It'd certainly be high enough, but then we'd have housing issues and kitchen issues and all the associated costs that would go with having people be living near the equipment as opposed to having to run across the building from where we are next door to the back part of the building. So it's the efficiency wouldn't be there, but we'd have to make some modifications. But the chief and I did look at it, and it's you could certainly do it. I don't know what it would cost, but you could certainly do that as a stopgap into the future. But ideally, better locations for fire distribution would be best. But yes, so all of that was contemplated. We also put into the process effectively the ability to set aside for capital expenditures. We also set aside some money to, in effect, lease a piece of equipment back to ourselves so that we would be able to bank money so that into the future, if we needed a new vehicle or whatever it might be, we would have, if not all of the money available, a significant portion of the money available. So we must understand that the millage that we currently have is completely inadequate. It was not going to be adequate when we passed it. And this is just a method of sort of continually kicking the can down the road. And so this request would all but eliminate the need to go back to the general public because we didn't anticipate enough expenses. The fact of the matter is, if you want a professional fire department, which I believe everybody does, or public safety department, I should say, it comes with a cost. And because we've had to take money out of the general fund to fund the fire department, the citizenry has actually gotten a very good deal over the course of the last several years. And we hope that the citizens will understand that and will move forward to an affirmative vote.
So I guess my only, well, not my only, but one of my principal concerns is the, yeah, and he stated it, kicking the can down the road. So with this resolution, you're looking at keeping the 1.5 current through its sunset in 2027. This would be a 3 mil on top of the 1.5 to get to the combined total 4.5.
Right.
For until 2027. My concern is this is from decisions or our citizens on side of saying, okay, let's say this passes, they passed a 3 mil fire department millage.
Mhm.
In 2027, when this renewal's back on, it's no longer a 3 mil renewal. Now you're actually going to be coming back at them and they're going to be like, I thought I paid for this. Because you're actually in 2027 going to be asking for, if it's a continuation, that 4.5, which is now a whole new variable to be considered from their perspective.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that, and let's sort of try to project into the future a little bit. Certainly by that time, we will have a fully funded department, and we will have a very good handle on what our cost of doing business is. And it may be that we don't need 4.5. It may be that we need 4, or it may be that some other millage request would be appropriate at that time. But
Well,
We won't know that until,
at 4.5, the way that the spreadsheet was laid out,
Mhm.
it did not include any capital improvements. It was labor and operational.
no, there was some capital outlay there.
No.
Yeah, there was $40,000 a
For
year.
paid on call.
No, there was another fund in
Well,
there.
and my point to this is that we're gonna be top heavy, as the graph kind of showed us the last time I sat with the fire committee, is that we're gonna have to be fiscally amazingly responsive and setting aside money in the first half of that tenure of the millage request, because at 4.5, stringing that out to 10 years, this is obviously a shorter request.
Right.
But at 4.5 at 10 years, you're within $100,000 of cost versus collection. So that's at 10 years, it's tight at 4.5. So I don't know. Fire departments never get cheaper, so I would be cognizant of the potential reduction downstream, but
Norm had something.
oh, sorry, yes, trustee.
Well, I'm on the committee. I didn't get on the committee until I believe it was December. I think it was December. And I've been working on this. But before I get into some other parts, I just need to ask the other question. What is, so the board knows, what is Plan B in the event that this millage fails?
Well, and the fire millage is, Laura, I served on it for a while, Steve and yourself. So I guess.
I'd like
What were those
Steve to answer that.
conversations?
Well, we projected this out several alphabetical letters. If it was not successful in the upcoming vote, then we would essentially ask again in November. And at that particular point in time, then the Board of Trustees would have to determine whether or not the millage request is appropriate and adjust as necessary. And then we went to several other ways of looking at this. Ideally, somewhere along the line, the best approach is probably an authority that would create a multi-jurisdictional authority. And we don't know what the likelihood of that is.
So if it doesn't pass, that doesn't mean our voters are saying, no, they don't want a fire department. That could also mean they're saying, it's been working the way it is. The general fund's been helping fund it. Maybe that's what they want. So that's what they will get. I
Well,
think we
I
have to
think-
wait to see what the voters say.
Yeah, I mean, we could also
The only way.
reduce,
know.
we could reduce services. That is certainly an option. Reducing services has its own set of ramifications. But right now, this is the best approach.
Well, and we did discuss that, and I got on it even after, on that committee, even after Norm. But I think we need to present it to the public in August. If it doesn't pass, bring it back in November, but, and get through this process, but to look at down the road that, oh, if it passes, then we would go again at that point in time for 4.5. We don't know for sure at this point in time if that's a good number, a good ask of the people in 5 years in 2027. I think we'll know that more as time goes on.
So the numbers that you have used to get to the 4.5 total is with a chief. And so it's a chief, a
Yeah.
captain, a lieutenant, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Firefighter and the fire.
So it's just Joe Citizen, I'm going, we did it before with the chief and 6 firefighters. Why do we need all the extra?
I guess that's gonna come back to this board is, so we've tried a lot of things.
I mean, this is the optimal best solution.
It's my position
Right.
that through this process, if we're gonna go this direction, we don't afford ourselves the failures of our past and pushing a millage that we find that the public may seem to be appropriate. Costs are costs, and that's gonna be up to them to decide.
Right.
And keeping it low to get something passed is why we're having this conversation currently. You know, we were told we don't need anything. This is 1.5 is all the people will ever pass. We can't go for it. And so I'm always hesitant when I hear language of, well, this is what's palatable, because what's palatable is that we are obligated to give our citizens the best service possible. So if this is an adequate number that will get us out 6 years and afford our community that, then let them make that decision.
Well, and, oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I just wanted to say, I guess when you say the best service possible, I mean, it's like if the fire department's gonna run off of a 1.5 versus eventually, 4.5. You're gonna give your best service either way. You're just not gonna be able to offer those services at
Higher level.
1.5, a higher level of service at a 1.5 as you are a 4.5. So there's that to look at
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
throwing money at a problem is not the only solution to said problem. So yes, trustee Tool or Reiner.
Well, I will tell you, I will be a very hard sell to offer this to the voters a second time in November. You'd have to convince me to change from that position, which is where I'm at right now. Because I think if you want to present it to the voters in November, because you think there'll be more people available to vote for it or something, or less people as the case may be, then present it to them in November. Don't present it to them in August. But the other thing is that if I understand the staffing and the budget for staff, we're still only putting one person, one firefighter per shift, per station, just like has always been done in our township, except when the city was covering us and we had two well, I don't know if they were both paramedic, but we had a paramedic and that was also a firefighter and a firefighter in each station. So we had double the coverage we have now, but we're not staffing for that even at 9. And so to me, we're not necessarily offering better service even with going up to the 9 people. So only 7 are with. Our focus has been that would be the minimum number necessary, staffing one person per station to keep from paying the high level of overtime that we've been paying for the last several years. So it's a budgetary consideration as well to staff it at a higher number of folks. And I'm surprised, frankly, Steve, that the number for salary and benefit packages are only $600 and some thousand, because I was counting approximately $90,000 to $100,000 per person on staff. Now, those might be starting salaries, but I mean, once you get them trained and experienced, I think you're looking closer to $90,000 to $100,000 per person to get those people on board and fully trained and ready to go forward. So maybe my numbers are off, but that's what I thought. So I was a little surprised that the 640, I think you said, was for staffing. And I don't know if that included chief and any other people as well, but so that seems like a lower number than it's probably.
The numbers.
The numbers are accurate, and the extrapolating those numbers out over a protracted period of time, many of the coverage, or excuse me, many of the costs are pretty easy to extrapolate. There were some unknowns. Health insurance costs, for example, would be one that is a relative unknown. But I believe if memory serves me right, Chief, do you know if we put in a 10% adjustment each year on the health insurance? I can't remember which number we used. We didn't use the same percentage as one would get with a typical cost of living adjustment through union contracts and so on. But with regards to health insurance, which was one of the wild cards for sure, we tried to build in enough fat so that it would carry it out over that period of time.
And to the numbers, Michelle and I actually put the spreadsheet together that they use, and these are for, in terms of salaries, are spot on.
You're assuming how many of them are taking insurance, for example?
Well,
Families.
that is the variable. To this number, Blue Cross was never added in, because there was no way to predict. Some people opt out, some people have one child, some.
So we have a
So
family.
how do you take an average of any cost between 1,200 and?
So these numbers don't reflect full benefit packages, and that's
The
available
only, the
to our
only
people.
variable that you could add because of the severity of unknowns was health insurance. Everything else is included in that. But that was one of the variables of how do you even plug in? Yes, trustee Paul.
Go ahead, finish what you're. I just want-
Well, that's, so that my point is that can be as much as $20-some thousand a year for family coverage
It can.
per person.
Trustee Paul.
On this committee, I recommended that we get a consultant, a professional consultant that knows fire departments. The committee itself, including myself, I know nothing about fire departments other than what I've learned over the past years of being on this township board. And we didn't have that professionalism. Is one of the reasons we didn't have the time. But there's going to be a cost, but like Mr. Genshaw had mentioned, we have no professionalism in here. There's also no overtime figured, and the committee said there will be no overtime with these numbers. Well, I disagree.
40,000.
Pardon?
40,000
For,
overtime.
okay, I'll back off on that one. But even at that, the other part, this three mills that we're asking for personally is not enough. And I've stated my comment to the committee that I didn't think it was enough. And that's only the quick numbers that we're talking about and going over. And there's a lot of these that are sized, but we need to get enough the first time to make sure it's correct. And we're going for 6 years, whatever it is. And I just feel it's not enough. We have not had some professional people involved in helping this committee. And I think the numbers and everything that was done that I can see, these look like some pretty realistic numbers, but we're not fire department professionals. There's people that specialize in that, and you're not going to get that done in a couple of weeks, and it's not going to be cheap.
Well, if we don't get it done in a couple of weeks, we're not going to make the August
That's where
primary.
the other part came in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make the millage.
I've, for the record, I've been doing budgeting for decades. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job at it. So I disagree with you, Norm. There's adequate money. I believe that our operational costs are accurate. I believe our payroll costs are accurate. I believe the collective revenue stream of about 1.6-ish is about $500,000 to the positive over our expenses. So I would respectfully disagree with you on that.
And I think that we've had some good conversation.
like
And
to-
this is, yeah, trustee Reiner.
I'd like to just explain one other thing that I, commented in regard to going to the voters twice. I think that just makes people angry. And I'm going back to the early 80s when the school district did that multiple times. And I was involved in the litigation for the outlying townships that were upset about the stoppage of busing. I didn't make a lot of friends in the city at that point. But the point is, it made people angry when they kept being asked the same thing in separate elections for a period of elections. It made it worse, not better. So that's why I have an angst towards any idea or thought or even statement that we would go back a second time in November if we don't pass it in August. That's kind of where I'm coming from, just so you know.
Well, and there is a recommendation from trustee Paul.
Well, I'll add one other item here. Okay, if we go for plan A for the 3 mills, that fails, and we go to November and we run it again and that fails, What's Plan C?
Well, and right now, we're sitting in April trying to make a hypothesis as to what our general public will afford. I think at this point in time, I don't disagree. I know the numbers that at least Michelle and I had worked on and brought forward to the fire committee are sound. My comments were, I see the potential confusion with the voters downstream of saying, well, why are we renewing a 3 mil millage at 4.5? And that's a downstream topic too. It's just things that we have to be cognizant of and be able to answer to those people when the time comes.
My thoughts are, I feel like the fire committee put in a lot of hours, a lot of work, came up with these numbers. I feel we need to turn it over to the voters and see what they want to do and leave it in their hands.
We did talk about the idea that we could go for a lesser millage. And I felt that the lowest that we should consider would be a 2.5, probably more like a 2.75, and still be in the positive, but just not quite be able to bank as much money for future needs, but we could still get away with a millage amount that would be slightly less, but not too much less, for fear of just sort of walking into the same problems that we've walked into, that we're dealing with currently.
Well, there's a recommendation on the table to pursue the resolution for the fire department millage. Is there a motion that follows that effect of the resolution?
Isn't the committee report the motion?
Well, I'd like a committee member to make the motion if that's how we'd like to proceed, but a motion is, I'm asking if there is a motion on the table to pursue the resolution for fire department operations and equipment millages of 3 mil for 6 years to be levied through 2022 and 2027 inclusive.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support it.
A motion and support. Further discussion?
I would just like to comment too, back when we were in a situation where, the city was helping us out and, we said, we will give this one more chance. We've been working in that direction, and this is what will be presented to the public, and it's up to them to decide which, just like Michelle said. But, people ran it and raved one way or ran it and raved the other way. And, now it's out to the public, and you tell us what you want.
I think it will be telling either way it goes. So we have a motion and support on the table. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Trustee Polly,
No.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasury Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Okay, moving forward from the fire department millage request is road millage request. Another thing that we've, which mountain do we climb? Is another one that's been a poll on general fund dollars is road funding. Roads are not funded at all by any tax dollar collected here at the township, although a lot of our residents believe that that is a direct correlation to their tax payments. It is not, it's only correlated to gas tax. But our current standings with our road commission and has been, we're at 8 years of $8 million below average road grade, which with what has been worked on as far as a resolution at 2 mils collected, that would put at $754,000 roughly collected in the first year. It will take in all actuality, all 10 years at a collection rate of 2 mils to get to average road grade. And that's not just rehabbing our current roads, that also there's language that affords the potentials of new construction, of which there's old discussions coming back to the forefront of traffic bypasses and how do we look at safety and traffic concerns, especially in our west corridor. So I worked with Ryan Brady at the Road Commission. I think, well, he's presented to this entire board the status of our roads. This is, something I brought forward because at 2 mills, it will take all 10 years of collection just to get us to that. Obviously, if we go for, we can always look at a lesser millage. But I always take the mindset of if it's going to be done and done right, I don't want to be the person that kicks the can down the road. And 2 mills is that threshold of we can actually attain a goal inside the life of this millage. So I'll entertain all questions. In regards to the road millage, I just did our ride around last week, I think, finished up with the road commission. And our roads are horrible. We have a lot of bad roads and infrastructure. And this is, there again, this is one of the opportunities, as was discussed between both of these millage requests. How much can the general fund pay? And really, if we look at standalone fire millage that is satisfactory, then we're no longer funding on an annual basis of $240,000 all the way up to, I think, almost $500,000. That's a reduction and a factor on the general fund. As we sit here currently with our budget for this year, we're at $175,000 for roads. I've always tried to project getting close to that $300,000 annual contribution towards roads. The reality is, no matter how much money we can try to steer at it from the general fund, we will never get caught up on our road conditions. They will only continue to fall apart. That's why I present this board with a 2 mil road request at 10 years. Because it is a factor that will get us to satisfactory road conditions inside the lifespan of this millage request. Yes, trustee Ryan.
I'm very much in favor of additional funds for roads in our township. To me, that's part of quality of life that we need to try to help provide. I say I mean, if the voters want to do it, then we can help in a greater way. However, I noticed in the millage request, it mentions ditches, which I think is a sore subject in a lot of areas. And I remember being sitting in on a county commission meeting where a gentleman who had a real legitimate beef kept coming back and coming to the road commission because the ditches weren't properly doing their jobs in his area, and it was ending up in flooding in his farm fields. If we're going to put that in the millage, we better be prepared to direct. And do we have that level of control with the road commission to direct? You will fix this road and clear the ditches.
Yes, we do have that level of control. That language is added because just that fact is we wanted to make sure that I worked with him on drafting that language, and it was to encompass. We had maintenance, I believe is where we started as just a vague term for, which includes, as we will have presented, potentially projects that from the road commission that we've had over, at least over the last 5 years, have included ditching. Because ditching is a massive problem.
Just in my area alone, I've called the road commission once, I guess, to ask them to clear culverts, because culverts under the roads are half plugged up. And they had the problem, that was city and township, I think, down at Genshaw and Long Rapids a few years ago, which caused that whole east side of the golf course area and probably into Trowbridge, some flooding issues. You know, they're just not, and I know it's hard work and there's some engineering involved to make sure the slopes are right and all that stuff. But, you know, just clearing culverts isn't necessarily going to fix the problem because the ditches then are filled in too, you know.
So I mean, we can get real deep into the weeds and look at our geological features that are present in all of Alpena County. We have a plethora of karsts where we have actually a 100-year-old log that popped out into Lake Huron out of the sinkhole that came from a log cutting and sunk in the lake 113 years prior. So we have such this is something that I obviously, since we're having this conversation, I hope that there's some county commissioners listening, because drain commissioner's role in any community, and especially a low-lying coastal community such as ours, should be a six-figure salary, as it is in any other true city, county government that has a drain commissioner. Throwing $1,000 at a position and then making that individual go for bonds for any project is a dereliction of duty. And it goes well beyond just road ditching. You look at systemic bad agricultural practices, that's where we have all of our feeder creeks that should have an alignment to the river for dispersal have been manipulated. So what comes first, you know, in those instances? Are you going to change hundreds of years of bad agricultural practice at the sources? Or do we actually have some adherence to the road commission who may not be the biggest fans of ditching, but are also taking the fact that ditches have to be aligned with their roads? So they're hand in hand. Henceforth, that is why that language was added, just to make it abundantly clear that ditching is maintenance, but we wanted to have it site specific because drainage is a huge issue. And it's a systemic problem depending on annual rainfall and or other melt and runoff from our 1,252 square miles of Thunder Bay River watershed. This all drains downtown. It has to go somewhere. Not all of it's associated with road ditching, although it can be a conduit for better expulsion of excess waters. So that's why that language was in there. We have currently, or at least I know for a fact, over the past 5 years, funded ditching projects, of which we did one last year that has, we actually did two principal. And this is on a road that I believe has the opportunity to become classified as a primary, and that being Misery Bay Road. There are two primary points of ingress and egress to all of North Point, which until I took this office, I never knew how many residents were in the greater El Cajon North Point area. Until you go down a 2-track and realize there's 32 houses on this road. So if you want a good example of what proper ditching can do, and that's Elisa, with my background, I look at that as being key to road survivability, is getting rid of the excess water before you throw good money at a bad road. If you can get the water issue addressed, 80% of the time, the road's going to have a higher and a longer lasting survival rate. So if you look at Misery Bay Road, we reinstituted a ditch along the north side of Misery Bay Road, east of North Point Shores, rediverting water back to Isaacson's Bay. We did cross culverts at the intersection of North Point Road and Misery Bay, and then re-ditched down Misery Bay Road past Theme Canal to that outlet. And that road, and it's still bad because roads are bad this spring. We've had a horrible spring for roads. But that road, because of those ditching projects, you can actually at least go down it in 2-wheel drive, not 4. So that's why that language was added in there to make sure that when it's in the scope of a road project, ditching is inherently hand in hand. So I thought that added clarity to that. I think we've been up to the task. It's just how much can we get accomplished with $175,000 when we're at over $8 million in a road deficit rears. It's not even a drop in the bucket. So it is with the numbers and where our
Well, that would
are.
give us some leverage with the road commission, would it not, if we had the
Oh, yeah,
the
most
amounts of
definitely.
money that this millage would.
Well, I mean, that affords us the potentials of, as it is even annually, although we are not ever in an economic position to afford more monies to roads. That may lead to the topic of every annual cycle, any township that doesn't utilize their 50-50 match, we could probably take and apply to township roads. And why wouldn't we leverage anything and everything at this? We can also leverage, whether it's to a federal or a state funded potential, which there are potentials there, is any of those funding mechanisms. If you're coming in and saying, you know what, I have a known revenue stream and it is this, that is a mechanism that affords and opens a lot of doors for subsidies. It's when you have no means to match funds, we'd never get ahead.
Is this proposal from supervisor? Is this from?
That is from me.
Okay.
Yep, and I work with you. I saw
I'll support your motion.
Well, we have one hand up, or,
Well, then we can have discussion.
Yeah.
We're having it anyway.
I think this is also one place that we've been not necessarily lax, but because of logistics of our outer citizens, they don't get some of the things that the ones closer in town get, one of them being fire, but that's the place where most of the bad roads are. So I think we're giving them some benefits of improving our road system.
yeah, honestly, after I did the tour with Mr. Yanni from the road commission, I will say numero uno this season in terms of bad roads. And I know that they sent a grader out yesterday with South Partridge Point Road, which isn't that far off of any infrastructure. It's just the fact that we're now in a recession cycle of the highest water level in recorded history. And it beat the datum points of October of '86 for high water levels of Lake Huron. We superseded that. So our soil conditions, we're seeing the adverse effects of our perched water table, especially with our residential service line breaks. That fluctuation in groundwater and surface friction has been probably one of it. Well, obviously the materials were substandard to begin with, but one of the exacerbating factors of the fact that we have such an alarming rate of residential service line breaks. So yes, I'll bring forward as a recommendation, I'll bring forward in the fact of a motion to move forward with a resolution for the millage purpose proposal for funding public road and ditch creation, construction improvements, repairs and maintenance millage at 2 mills for 10 years. And you're supporting?
You made the motion.
I made the motion in this regard, yes. So there is a motion and support. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Lappin.
Yeah.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yeah.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward, in new business, we have the introduction of ordinance 150, which is the zoning ordinance amendment regarding medical and adult use marijuana use. Before we get into these concurrent topics, because we also have an introduction of ordinance 151, which is the regulatory ordinance that Tim put together. Affording you the knowledge that this is an introduction to both of these ordinances, of which an approval would be at a later meeting. But the process, and I want to make sure it's clear, is this is the recommendation that came from, as it stands currently, the recommendation from the planning commission that is before us as an introduction. That being said, said recommendation can be amended by this board before adoption of the amendment. So if there's topics of concern, which I think I forwarded, especially some of the conversations that I've had with the inclusion of places of worship as a potential, those can be amended at our subsequent meeting at the time of adoption.
We can make those motions then before.
Yes,
This is not an action item.
No,
yet,
this
but-
is starting the process.
It is action item, though. We will have to make a motion to introduce that.
Yeah.
To
In that way,
introduce it.
just to introduce it.
Okay. I
So.
don't know what that means, but.
To introduce it to the public
Yep.
to review.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as a charter, we have to introduce and then adopt at a subsequent, meeting, if any and all.
Gives people.
So ordinances.
And I arranged publication of a notice saying these proposed ordinances have been introduced at this meeting and will be considered for adoption at the next meeting.
There'll be a specific date in there.
Yeah, I'll put a specific, the next,
25th.
unless the board directs me otherwise, it'd be the next board meeting.
Do you have to read it all today?
No.
Because otherwise, if you were, I'm gonna go. take a
No, just by doing the motion, we've officially introduced them.
Are you going down the hallway to look at ditching?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna vote?
Well, honestly, if
I'll make that motion to introduce.
okay, we have a motion on the table to introduce ordinance 150. Is there support? It's been moved and supported to introduce ordinance 150. Further discussion?
I just have probably a question that is self-evident, but I'll ask it anyway. Under ordinance number 150, item 12, which had to do with the separation of up to
Distances?
yeah, 750 feet. if any one of those places were to want to open a facility within that 750 feet, is it under the heading of they already knew it existed?
So even they would not be, that would be a defining stopgap measure by our own zone. So that is one of the things, and I believe I forwarded, Tim gave you the language that the city looked at in terms of inclusion and separation distances. Because I'd also like to reiterate the fact that ordinance 142 and its creation as a zoning mechanism was in parallel to the city. So we try to have a lot of linear function, because if you're an outside developer, you really know where that invisible municipal line is. So that is one of the things I forwarded the email from Tim to all the board in regards to the city language. That was in there. But there again, we can actually have discussion after the introduction and say, this is what we would like to see for an amendment, if that were the case.
Right, at your next meeting, when you consider it for adoption, you can say the planning commission has recommended such and such for the zoning ordinance amendment. We want to change.
Yeah, so
Did you want to see
maybe,
that, Russ?
maybe my
What the
question
city
wasn't
has?
clear. So
I got it.
let's look into the future. And there is a dispensary at such and such a location. And then 2 doors down, somebody wants to open a childcare center. They wouldn't be able to
No,
because,
that's already
All right.
grandfathered. You
All right.
would be grandfathered. in that
Yeah, I
situation.
think I believe.
You hate it? You're not a grandfather.
If the child care center decided they wanted to move within 750 feet, that'd be up to them. I suppose.
but wouldn't that be a
This-
special
this
permitted
city-
We
use?
wouldn't be able to adversely impact the dispensary.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's 6 different licensures, because this will be an, I'll make sure that I send everybody the MRA that's handed down from the state, because there's 1,000,002 steps before
Yeah,
it even come. But any of the 6 licensures that are proposed in this ordinance, and it's not just a dispensary or a micro business, which are 2 of the 6. Any of these licenses, no matter who's within any distance, are all special use.
Okay.
Any
that's-
of these go to the planning commission for thorough review. So there's controls.
All right, well, that's what I
everywhere.
thought the answer was.
But yeah, so a child daycare center, what came first?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
that's how zoning would look at it at that point in time. If the daycare was there first and it was in whatever approximation of linear feet that the board decides on, then that sets precedence. So that our zoning inherently is its own control mechanism by design.
All right, good. That's
Yeah,
what I
one
thought.
thing, what I thought you were gonna point out is what I caught in 12D is it still says 500 feet. And I wondered if that was an oversight. From
Well, no, this is how it came out of.
That's why I
the
wondered if that
planning
was an
commission.
oversight.
So-
from the
So
planning.
we can, yeah, this can be at our subsequent meeting. If we have amendments to bring forward or at adoption, then that's when we have those conversations.
But you're saying they should be consistent,
I
right, Russ?
thought, well, I thought so, but maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think I wasn't at the planning commission level when they were hashing this back and forth. And so Denise Klein made a point of noting that we're changing 500 to 750, and I don't
Yeah,
think
she missed that.
she
We
missed
should-
that.
This should be consistent.
The rest picked up, yeah.
Yes, trustee Paul.
And it was also noted in there that R3 was recommended to be deleted also out of.
Yes.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so if you have
R3.
yours in color, like
What's
on page 3 of
R3?
9.
Oh,
she
R3,
already has it. You know,
okay.
Planning commission has
Residential.
residential 3 is mixed use residential, which that was a point of concern, because obviously not everybody knows zoning. And anytime you say R3, even though it can be potentially in certain districts, be predominantly all commercial, it has that flexibility. So it's a mixed use of residential and commercial activity. That was a concern that the planning commission had heard, and like I said, it was already kind of highlighted as the recommendation was removing R3 from this. And so that's one of the potential
Would that be
amendments.
similar? Would that be somewhat like South 23 on the?
You can look at, it's
Yeah.
the darker orange on our zoning map. I take the position of R1 and R2 is where you have your high density, single family homes when there are no businesses other than home occupation. I look at R3 in just one zone, which would be 23 north to Long Lake in our county line. And in an R3 zone, you do have some mix, but you also have existing establishments such as liquor stores, bars, etc. And so when I look at this, this is a business.
Dollar General.
They pop up everywhere. There's one just east of the airport. This is all context and all conversation that we can have. Today, we're looking at just introducing, and then I would implore every trustee to look at, and I may ask Haley if she could forward the entire board, the MRA pack, if you haven't looked at that, just to have some better definition of the state's role and involvement in this, where 99% of the time, I would say it's the state's control, run away from it. But this is the one time when I feel that the state actually has proper controls put in place. And this is an opportunity for us to give consideration to business expansion in our community that would actually also have an inherent level that the state has defined, Department of Treasury defined this past month of disbursements to eligible communities that have allowed dispensaries or micro businesses. It's pretty fascinating. They went from the first year of disbursement and payment of roughly $28,500 being paid back to the municipality per license, plus the $5,000 for annual inspection. And these are annually generated funds. This past month, they increased that margin from $28,000 and change to $56,000 and change, plus the $5,000. So we're looking at, in that regard, when you want to think about it, if you had 5 or 6 businesses at that collection rate of $63,000 per license, you're actually in a small order creating enough revenue that would basically take care of 1 mil of tax collection. And that's just sound math. So when we have these discussions of millages and affording our community, whether it's the best service or whatever, part of my stand since I've been in office and since 2016 is we can find more efficient means to operate as a government and not put the burden solely on the tax base. And this is one of those opportunities.
And these funds, whether it's 28,000 or 56,000, are only for certain types of licenses, correct?
Two of the 6, the micro business license and the dispensary license. Not all, but all 6 licenses, you can actually have a annual $5,000 inspection fee.
Have you ever heard any chatter from the state about whether they would expand that to other types of businesses?
I think that the state right now is wondering, they're now realizing what Colorado realized about 7 years ago of their portion of these taxes and collections through the state were anticipated to generate in year 1 $9 million that would be solely dispersed to road commissions. 9 million. They collected $63 million just for roads. So this is where, going back to the previous topic of road millages is how do you leverage the most? Well, I don't know what the disbursement was to Alpena County Road Commission, but it will be significant. And maybe that's where, if a road millage is successful, now we have another leveraging mechanism in a partnership to really make the most out of our infrastructure in that regard. Now, will the state look at increasing that? I think the state's going to be in that quandary of how best to disperse all the monies collected. And I think that they're going to probably have to expand what those dispersals are.
I think if I understood Tim's question, and it is my question, is there any possibility for trucking licenses for grow operations? Will they ever, include a payment back to the township for those kinds of licensing as opposed to just sales?
Well, and that's kind of what I guess I took a little bit of a roundabout. But a little high hat. I think that because of the amount of collections, they'll have to give consideration to what other licensures, because they could fill their coffers, but I think the state, at least how I would hope, understands that that money is best spent at the ground level, that being at the county and the township or the city level. But that's beyond my scope of knowledge.
I'm not
All I
aware
know-
that the county gets any of that. money.
County does get, by default, the county gets the money as well. Presque Isle County, for example, and this is all on a spreadsheet through the Department of Treasury. Presque Isle County has 2 licensures, one being a micro business, one being the Meds Cafe dispensary on 23 North. Presque Isle County gets money, but then it also falls into, I don't know if it's
Because they have
Rogers
no,
Township,
because
so they have 2 licenses.
the county governments have no say in any of the licensure.
No, but they get money for it by default. They have 2 licenses in Presque Isle. One's in Onway, one's on 23 North and Meds Cafe. The one in Onway is a micro business that still has as much as I know, has not even opened their doors yet, and they still collect that money. Because that's part of the process. It's not just an overnight, I'm opening up doors. They need, part of the process is they need to know a location, the state certification, make sure it's X 1,000 feet away from schools. That's a function of the state.
You know how
roughly-
much each business has to pay the state annually for their?
Oh, just to get in
part?
the door, the filing fee for initial paperwork is $6,000 per person that's on the application. That is non-refundable, just to start the paperwork. They have to have, that's where I'll send you all the MRA, because you'll then understand that we're the glossary after the entire book. They've covered just about everything.
If the state's giving us 56,000, you know, they're getting more than that.
Oh, they're getting a lot more than that. That's why every road in Colorado is pretty much brand new. It's because where do you spend this money? Where do you put it back?
Hopefully in law enforcement.
Well, and that's been a big thing. And I've already reached out to Sheriff Joe from Presque Isle County. I've asked him to be in attendance for our next meeting because I had a very good conversation with him about this topic, and I would like for him to present it to this board as far as his experience with said business in his jurisdiction. And it was eye-opening to me, and surprisingly so. So we have an introduction, we have motion and support. Further discussion as to ordinance 150 introduction. Seeing none, roll call please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. So I would implore you, I'll get you some more background information, including that MRA. And give consideration to further discussion at our subsequent meeting and go from there with whatever amendments that we so choose. Moving forward is the rider to ordinance 150, and that is ordinance 151, which is the medical marijuana facilities and adult use marijuana establishments licensing ordinance. Tim, would you like us to give a quick synopsis?
And that's the regulatory ordinance. It gets into the weeds of things like how to apply, how to obtain a permit, the fee for doing that, and related issues. Also, this is the ordinance that specifies the number, various types that are authorized, that would be authorized if this is approved by the town eventually. Seen in other communities, some have chosen to pick a particular number, 5 dispensaries. That often triggers a lawsuit. How to pick 5 out of the 25 to apply. So just from what I'm reading, comments from the attorney, municipal attorney's blogs and some other things. There was an article in one of the Detroit papers online stating that seems that more are moving away from picking a number in order to avoid that potential litigation and letting the marketplace determine and your zoning, things like the spacing requirements. So we wouldn't want to adopt one ordinance without the other.
Yes, trustee.
Tim, is this something you pretty well put together with the agglomeration of all other entities? Or is this kind of a canned?
Good question. Gathered probably 20 sample ordinances from around the state. And then Denise Klein's been working with the city when they amended their zoning ordinance in similar fashion.
Okay.
So I said, well,
Right.
yeah, let's see what the city did too. So she gave me the city's document. And I modified it. Nathan and I worked together and so some things I thought needed improving, but for the most part, it's going to be very consistent. With the
And it's
city.
very detailed. Yeah, and very.
Yeah, and it needs to be, as liaison to the planning commission, when we had, I forget the gentleman from the regional organization from Detroit that gave the presentation
Yes.
online. He worked with Denise and some of those language requirements to make sure that, you know.
Yeah,
So-
anticipating some issues that could potentially come up, probably wouldn't, but could, just to make sure. And it's an ordinance, same thing with the zoning ordinance, as we proceed, if you approve these, eventually, sometimes we amend these things if we see a problem in practice.
And we as a township board, there's a lot of things we'll have to be doing in reference to this. So
I have one question on this. I see the growers have 3 classes. Class ABC, 100, 500, and whatever the other number is. Do we know the policy reason for that? In other words, are some of these grows then only allowed to be indoors and some outdoors, or?
That's a state.
Well, I know it is, but I just wondered if we knew.
So the principle and practice there is, if you look at this as a business, which everybody, especially in that industry, does nowadays, is here in Alpena, Michigan, we're on the cusp of a zone 4, zone 5, which is a very temperamental climate for growing conditions, especially for such a, and oftentimes a very tropical plant.
I had
So-
some former customers that used to do well.
And so you can, I mean, but for commercial purposes, when they have that level of investment, it's gonna be an indoor grow because they want an ROI. They don't want to take the opportunity of having any environmental factors have a detriment to that crop. So, but the state regulates that. That's how the A, B, and C came to be. Numbers of plants. Now, can it be outdoors? If it met all the standards of the planning commission by special use, that'd be a consideration.
I thought the planning commission already had taken that out.
I think you talked about it, didn't you?
that's out.
Yeah, well, fact of the matter is, it seems to be out, but it's not, because Steve could have 12 plants at his house. Your neighbor on the backside of the golf course could have outdoor plants.
So it's out as far as the ordinance of
Yeah.
the growing part of it, though it's regulated through the state, but the recreational, the people do it at home. but not-
Oh, that's personal use and whatever, but you know, I had some really creative teenagers that were able to find those places. But anyway, so, you know, that's a concern. I just wondered if there's any rationale for us to limit the grow licenses to a larger number if we're forcing them to be indoors. And so, you know, and not do a class A and a class B, but only authorize a class C or something like that. So I just wondered if there's any rationale for that. And, you know, I guess nobody's seeing that, but
No, because
Maybe.
it's part of their any applicant's process at the state level to define which licensure that they. Yeah, I guess we could say we're only going to accept class C license. But I guess why would you? It's, the market's gonna drive it, so.
well, because class C license would be a big operation and it would be a big tax base issue thing.
Well, the biggest thing for me, and even the infancy of this discussion, is I'm more interested in the grows, in actually turning our agricultural lands back into an agricultural use. Because if we actually start defining agricultural lands for agricultural purposes, then we actually, by assessing and zoning, actually afford our mechanisms more greater flexibility in terms of leverage when it comes to residential or commercial zones. We've been losing agricultural, as everybody really has, for years and years and years. So that's always been one of the driving factors is the production and the transport, some of the unheard, not highly sought after dispensary licenses. And that's, I think, why the planning commission looked at the faults of other municipalities of the past is, oh, we've learned that lesson. Let's let the market figure it out. Let's not try to create a rubric for scoring that's going to land us in litigation. To me, at this point in time with this topic, this is a business, this is a product, it's a crop, and it's a potential revenue stream that is real. And if the argument is that the majority of the people, whatever they may seem to think about, are against it, the majority of the people should also look at if it's a minority use, then why not allow the minority to pay for the projects that are going to have a positive impact to the majority of the residents? It's better than taxing people left and right. This is an opportunity. So we have,
We do not have a motion.
we do not even have a motion. We have a recommendation from our attorney to move forward with the regulatory ordinance of an introduction of ordinance 151. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to move forward with ordinance 151. Is there support? I'll support it.
And that motion is basically to give notice to the public that we're considering this, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, like any other ordinance we introduce, and at a subsequent meeting, we have the opportunity, and in this regard, we can actually amend the ordinance before adoption. So further discussion on ordinance 151? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes, supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to new business item number 6. Laura, would you like to-
The board had discussed possibly putting a newsletter in with tax bills. The last time it was discussed was in 2020. And I had provided a sample of what a newsletter could look like. We talked about even whatever information we would want to put in it, if we wanted to put something about millages or what's going on with the township. But at that point in time, it was just, the motion was made just to revisit it down the road. So because we have a millage coming up and we may have other information we'd like to put in a newsletter, I just wanted to bring it back to the board of their wishes, whether or not we want to do a newsletter or not. For
What is the date, cutoff date for inclusion of a newsletter to the tax roll?
It's like the beginning of June. In 2020, it was June 8th, but I'm not sure what the date would be this year. But we would still have to have time prior to that to put it together. And
We don't know the cost.
well, the cost back in 2020 was, if we did it on our copier here, it was $368. Through Miller, it was $795, and through Allegra, it was $893. So I believe 2 years ago, we decided not to do it because of the cost and budget constraints, but it was just supposed to be brought up to the board to discuss, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Is this your motion?
I'm not making a motion. This is just discussion of
I guess
what the
then
board's
to
wishes are.
that, I think that there's especially, you make a very valid point with both the millage requests and other topics such as the ordinances that we just introduced. I wouldn't mind, I'll sit down with you and actually maybe just take the millage language of both, because we have to be extremely
I
careful.
was gonna say, don't we have to be extremely careful
Yeah,
about
we
putting
can-
anything
yes.
regarding
Yeah.
millage
We
with the
can-
tax bill?
Yes.
The
Yes.
operative word being
That was what
extremely.
okay, everybody knows that. I don't have. to.
Yeah, no, so maybe I'll work with you.
So
maybe
we
put
would
something
like,
together.
we would like to do it and just bring
Well,
the proof back.
I think what you and I could do is put together a
Prototype.
rudimentary prototype and bring back to the board.
Okay.
Think it'd be good.
Because we do have a lot to really kind of disseminate information and.
Well, and I have a lot of information that was on the last one that we could, there's always
Well, there's-
spots to fill in information.
You can
So,
always plug in holes there. So no,
Okay.
I will, I'll work with you on that.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, moving forward to line item, new business item number 7, budget adjustments.
You want me to take this one?
Oh, I would love for you to.
I know I promised that we'd have a break from budget adjustments, but we were $61.98 short for the principal on the fire truck annual payment.
Missed it by a
So,
day.
3 hours.
Yeah.
so we did have that extra money in the interest that would be part of that payment. So it's just moving it from the interest to the,
So are you making a
Principal.
motion? to move
So
forward
I
with
will
the budget
make-
adjustments?
a motion to move forward with this budget.
It's been supported. Further discussion?
Does that pay that fire truck off?
We have one more year
Okay,
after this.
okay.
One more year remaining on that. So we have a motion and support. Further discussion?
But we did pay off the,
We did this week or last week pay off the
The
new
new
fire
one.
engine that we bought last year.
Okay.
That has been paid. in
Oh, this
full.
is this
This
is
is
the
the one itself.
languishing fire department.
This is the 10-year. plan.
Yeah, yeah.
It should
This
never
was the
have
really good idea.
Yeah,
been. Yeah.
that we're still paying on.
They pulled up one day and why not?
Got a loan for it.
Yeah. So
Do
we
you wanna
have
wait
motion
for-
and support. Yeah, we'll give our regional ditching expert an opportunity to disperse some fluids.
look at him.
Yeah, stare when he
Everybody
comes
turn
in.
your head.
You missed the
Thank
turn.
you.
Nice.
Thanks for coming.
You
You
too.
too.
Well, we can go in slow motion.
I
Well,
could
we-
start
have
with
we
somebody
already-
else.
Yeah.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes,
supervisor Skibby,
Yes.
Reiner, yes.
trustee Reiner. For budget adjustment,
Oh.
6198 from interest to the principal
Oh.
for the,
No. It's too late now. Eh,
what is
Are
your?
you voting no on the budget?
Yeah, I am. I wanted to know why we had to do it so soon.
Oh, I explained that when you were
Yeah.
gone. so I
Yeah,
can
sure you
explain.
did.
Please explain. to
Because when we
trustee.
did the budget, we put $61.98 more in the interest that should have gone to the principal GL. So we're just moving it from the interest to the principal GL so we can pay that.
All right.
And are you opposed?
No, I'm fit.
Okay.
So is your vote yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. You know,
could you be more specific?
Moving forward is new business item 6, is the sale of the 2018 McCoy Miller ambulance. We do not have a date. We do not have anything in particular in regards to this. I would actually just prefer to have a board motion to continue conversation as the fire committee did once before with the city in regards to the potential purpose of this ambulance, but I would like to do it under the guise of motion of the board of support. Sale price would always be coming back to this board as a function at any of the subsequent meetings, depending on when this actually continues to move forward.
So
So
what are you asking for? A motion?
just a
for what?
motion to move forward with negotiations and terms of sale for the 2018 McQueen Miller ambulance.
Why wouldn't we put out an RFP rather, I mean, I'm just asking versus continuing discussions, like does discussions mean with like other entities or whatever that,
Well, an RFP wouldn't meet the standard of selling it, but.
why
the fact
wouldn't it?
of-
It's a request
For
for
proposals.
Well, right.
Yeah,
It's
purchase
either
proposal.
selling
Maybe it would be a
or
little bit
buying.
proposal to buy.
Request for
Just-
bids,
We
whatever.
Right.
did not go through an RFP with the first sale. And actually, as it stands currently, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but the already mentioned potential sale price of the second ambulance is well above.
This is one of our two newer ambulances.
Correct. So.
Question.
Are
In,
you,
just a quick question. In light of the email that we all received relative to the new pieces of equipment that haven't been ordered yet, is it prudent to?
Well, and it's not saying that we're gonna sell it right now. Yeah, that would be one of the considerations. What is that timing mechanism? But at the same time, I guess we'll have to have that discussion
Yeah.
at some point in time of when do you wait for one of the big three to get off their laurels and produce our truck?
Well, I mean,
But
I'm just,
not at the negative detriment of our department in the meantime.
it just seems to me that it sounded as though I personally have been into this where you have to sort of stay in line to even get the order submitted for consideration. So from what I gather right now is that the dealership is only allotted so many sales or orders, and that they sort of have to get in line with any other dealerships that might be out there that may be ahead of them, just in order to even get consideration as to whether or not they've even made the cut effectively to get, in this case, Ford to make these equipment. Now, it may be a little bit different with emergency equipment, but it has been something that I personally have been dealing with because I ordered a vehicle that I have absolutely no idea, even if it's gonna get to General Motors, to be made anytime soon. And then once it gets to the purchasing department or whatever department it gets to, then it could be months after that.
Well,
So I'm
I
just
totally missed-
concerned.
I totally missed that in the email. I thought that was just, he was calling to find out if it was in production yet.
Right,
Delivery could be expected. So you're saying they haven't even got our order in yet?
I get the impression, maybe I
I
misread
don't, I
it.
don't think we can read between lines
Okay.
between that email. I think that is a very extremely valid point
Yeah.
of why would we put ourselves and our men and women in harm's way without having resources considered.
Yeah,
But the fact of the matter is, I'm not looking to sell this tomorrow. This would be just the tip of the hat of the board to move forward with those negotiations to negotiate the best price.
yeah, I personally would rather see us table this thing for,
Then
till
make
we
a
have,
motion-
I'll
make
make a motion
to-
to table any further discussion on the 2018 McCoy Miller ambulance for sale.
There's a motion on the table to table by trustee Lappin. Is there support? Seeing no support, motion fails. Again, I guess I would just ask the board's permission. This would be coming back to this body in any capacity to negotiate best sale price,
So that's the motion, is for you to negotiate the best sale price.
to be approved by this body.
With anyone or just,
I'm open to anybody.
okay,
We have one offer. We had some pretty, in hindsight, we didn't have the best offers up front with the first one.
mhm.
And just the rough number I'm talking about now is a considerable uptick from the previous sell.
So is there a reason why, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
You can finish if you want.
Mike was just kind of piggyback off of you. If we aren't in a hurry to sell, why wouldn't we put it out for bids?
Because we're not ready to sell.
And I'm not gonna do an RFP to sell an ambulance. So if somebody wants to go out for bids, then that person can take that responsibility. Because I don't have time for an RFP. That'd be pretty much, from my standpoint, where that would begin and stop. Yes, look.
I would just like to, could we continue negotiations, try to get the best price, but also put in there when it comes time that, okay, we want to accept this price, sell it, but we won't have it available until we get our new ones or within,
Yeah,
or something
so-
like that, a time frame of.
That makes me nervous. if
Yeah,
there's a
because-
major accident if something happens.
Exactly. And what happens is miles
true.
still get on the odometer. So you can't negotiate a price and just freeze that price when it's continuously in use.
That's
That makes sense.
really the problem. Is to me, maybe I should have seconded the motion to table because
Well, if
to
you'd
me,
like to
the,
make a new motion.
You can make a new motion to table.
the point is that I don't know how anybody'd make a firm and fast offer on anything without knowing when they can actually take possession.
So I
Well,
guess.
so I go back to my same comment, is that we know we might want to do something. We don't know with whom or when, but we want to do something. Well, maybe we should narrow that down a little bit.
So do you want to, so I
So
could
we
make
have-
the
we have-
motion to table
Laura,
it
did
then.
you have your name?
I just wanted to make a comment. So it was my understanding that the chief mobile is now certified or whatever that word is to
State certified.
state certified. So let's just say we decided to sell the ambulance right now. Would the chief mobile be, could it be used in place of that?
For our license as an MFR, that would meet the standard.
Because it only has to have certain equipment.
Because the ambulance's principle is for transport. We've covered that base too many years ago.
Yeah.
But it obviously having a bigger vehicle affords a larger volume of potential resources available on scene. There's variables to consider, but to answer your question, yeah, the chief mobile could actually go on medical runs. That's part of what the whole conversation was from its beginning.
I'd rather make a motion that we take that ambulance out of service then. I'm sorry.
Is that, I mean, is this discussion or is it a
It's
motion?
just discussion at this point. That's something to consider.
So,
I would move a little bit further down the road with that comment to say that if we have a vehicle that is capable and is certified, then that should be the primary use vehicle to hold the miles down on this 2018 until such time as we have a better understanding as to where we stand in the order line of these two new vehicles.
Trustee Board.
Why isn't this vehicle being used now? The chief mobile. Is it being used now? For that purpose?
You want me to take a stand?
I'm asking somebody, I don't know why.
And you go
I
to
could give you
just
an
go
old
on
time
medical
notary.
calls. I mean,
So
It's been
can it
recently
replace the
certified.
ambulance?
it got certified. If you'd like to take, that way you can, if there's questions site specific to the chief. It has gone on medical call.
Good afternoon, Mark Hanson, Fire Chief. To answer Mr. Polly's question, the chief mobile is certified now through the state of Michigan at the bare minimum response vehicle. We wouldn't have any of our ice rescue supplies or anything that would come on a normal scene as if we would have our rescue unit. As of this morning at 20 minutes to 7, when my guy come on shift to do a shift inspection of his equipment, he come into my office and he said, "Chief, we've got a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "We've got green liquid on the floor underneath the rescue unit." Our current rescue, the oldest one that we have in the fleet, is out of service. I'm waiting for a repair facility to get us in line to even find out we know it's antifreeze. We don't know where it's coming from. That vehicle's down right now. This morning, Supervisor Skibby and myself had a discussion, reference the chief mobile going into action, and we're having a little light issue with that right at the moment. So I don't feel comfortable having my guys responding code to an accident in that particular vehicle. So I've directed them to use our engine at this point in time until we get our rescue unit back and running. The risk that we take if we put the chief mobile into service and sell the newest ambulance, we have no backup at that point, and we have nothing to carry ice rescue equipment. So
We have fire engine,
right, but
which carries already the majority of ice.
that's not a fact. The ice rescue boats and all the suits and stuff and all the coils of rope that we need taglines are all carried on the rescue units.
So, yes, Michelle.
I mean, in another month, ice rescue won't be an issue for several months.
It's still cold water rescue. We still have to have the suits.
So, okay.
So I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
raise
no,
my hand,
by all
but
means.
I just feel like this one that's leaking the antifreeze. Do we even use that very often? Because it seems like that's all we're doing is putting money in that thing.
It gets used every day.
Does it?
Oh, yeah.
The old one?
It responds to every medical call on the north side has, and just like the ambulance.
Is that
at
the
south side.
Tango one?
Yes, it
Well,
was a Tango.
it was-
Yeah, yeah.
It is a rescue, considered a rescue with an MFR status. Everything's got their own status, tangos, Bravos. Yeah, so I know it gets a bit confusing, and I
It
guess
is.
I'd like to thank the board for their patience and all of it, but at the same time, we are dealing with kind of an old dinosaur at this point. It's a 2003.
Mhm.
So they're even trying to see if they will be able to find parts for it, if there was a radiator, whatever. Mr. Foley?
So the chief mobile technically is available, but really it's not. Is that what
Right.
you're saying?
Yes, we're having light issues on it as of yesterday morning. So I've got repairs warranty lights coming in for it. So right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable having my guys respond code to an emergency with that vehicle.
Because of the lights or because of the
Right,
stuff
we
that's
still
not-
meet the 360 requirement, and they're used to going down the road with a vehicle that's got lots of big, bright and shiny lights, and people move out of the way. They don't move out of the way for the little chief mobile. I will tell you that. I've been driving it and responding. It just doesn't draw the attention that an ambulance does.
So that brings me to a point, and I ask you, is if it's not in service, then it should be pulled from service, the chief mobile. It's the same as it would be if the lights were questionable on a rescue unit, correct?
Well, we still meet the 360 requirement. But you're actually correct. I don't have to respond with that vehicle. I mean, to emergency, I can go non-code and still get there. If it's a priority one. Sorry.
So I guess we're getting off track. I think we've.
So back to the
asked enough questions.
2018.
So how would the board like to proceed? With, obviously, with all the nuances.
I think I'd like to say that I'll move to table this until we get to the point where we know that our other units are in production.
I'll second
How do you feel, Steve?
Hey, it's been moved
I'll
and
support.
supported. Okay, so we have a motion and support on the table to table this item. I guess then I'll just stop. Because I don't have board permission to have those conversations, so. That is what it is. We'll come back to it. Moving forward, roll call, please. There's no other discussion.
Trustee Polly.
No.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yeah, fine. Moving forward, Lexipol.
Would you like me to stay right up
Might as
here?
well stay right there. It's
Okay.
just the training mechanism.
Okay, if nobody's familiar with this, I think the board is probably entirely familiar with it by now. I've been talking about it for 3-4 months, but this Lexipol is a company that we can contract with to manage our online EMS ongoing education credits and fire credits for folks, especially for those folks that work an opposite shift when I have a training night or that type of activity. I can have my training officer assign those individuals the proper training online, so they don't miss out on credits for what we may have done in real classroom type or outdoor setting. For example, we had ice rescue training last Wednesday. If there's a couple of people that couldn't go to that, there's online modules that they can refresh and get that type of credit. And we can get them to make it up at a later date. Now, same goes with EMS credits. If they're not able to travel, this board's probably made decisions in the past to send people to Mackinac Island at a pretty high rate of expense to train individuals for EMS ongoing education credits. And I guess what I'm here to do is to try and help us save some money, even though a fire department is always asking for money. But just like the oxygen tanks that we spoke about several months ago, this is another mechanism for us to lessen our cost and still keep our training efforts going. Now, our insurance risk officer and myself originally talked about this. And that's why I started looking into the Lexipol. And just here last week, I had him revisit our location, and with a simple conversation, basically we got a discount because he was sitting there while I was talking with the rep from Lexipol and said, well, we're a partner with your organization. Is there a discount that can be afforded? So I originally put the quote into Clerk Blavich to be added to the board packet. Then I had to send her another one real quick because we ended up getting a discount. The original was $2,007, and that encompasses all of our staff. and now they reduced it to 1836.30. And it's my recommendation for the purposes of keeping up our training and getting our service to a better standard that we go ahead with this contract with Lexipol.
So we have a recommendation. Before we vote on that, we'd have to have the contract service agreement amended. Fire departments don't sign legal service agreements. So if you contact Lexipol, it'd have to be under Charter Township of Alpena with both the clerk and the supervisor's signatures. But we have a recommendation, and this is secondarily, this would be this cost, even at its inflated previous known tally, was folded into the grant that I wrote for the fire training, of which I have not heard back from that grant cycle. But that was a reimbursement grant of $41,000 worth of training goods. This was actually in that grant. So this would be, we have potentially a cost capture mechanism.
Is this a one-year contract?
It is
It
1
is.
year. So I'd entertain a motion to move forward with the recommendation.
Well, I was just gonna ask, does this cover all the staff,
It does.
even paid on calls and?
Right,
everybody?
on the back page of the quote, there's a breakdown. It'll be 17 fire and EMS folks, 3 just for EMS, 2 are just on a learning platform. And then we just have a setup fee on the other side of that $300 setup fee. Now, I think it's a great opportunity. If we get this service and we find out after a year, this doesn't work, then certainly we could certainly let it go at that point.
I just have one more question. Who's the training officer?
Lieutenant Stevens is the current training
Okay.
officer, acting training officer.
So then somebody will track making sure people are using this.
Absolutely. And what we'll do is the training officer will go off the sign-in sheet. Whoever doesn't have their signature on an actual class night will be assigned, and then they'll have a certain amount of time to get that back to the training officer. And then I will sign off that they've got it and it'll go in their training file.
What are consequences if they don't get it done in a certain amount of time?
Well, if you can come up with them for the paid on calls, I'd be interested in listening to that. For the full-time staff, it's a mandatory that they're at the training anyhow. But they can broaden the horizons, what they want to do while they're on shift. They can go into different levels of training and use this service to get even better at what they do. So as far as if let's say a full-time staff did not comply with what I wanted them to do, there's a disciplinary that could be involved with
But
that.
like on paid on call, if someone does not attend mandatory training and they show up at a fire scene.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with, when I first got here, I sent several certified letters out to
Right,
folks.
yeah, I am familiar with that.
They would get a certified letter or a phone call first, and I'd tell them to straighten up. If not, they're gonna get a certified letter, because as a liability, we can't have that.
Right.
If my OSHA inspector comes in here, they're gonna want to see training records, and that's my whole idea behind this. For those folks that, let's say they work the 7 PM to 7 AM shift, and our training starts at 7 PM just about all the time. They can't make it sometimes, so we have to be able to promote them to do something online. And they all sound pretty interested in doing that, because any of their EMS credits that they do for ongoing education, as soon as they complete a module, they can print their certificate off and it automatically gets sent to the state of Michigan. They don't even have to keep track of it themselves anymore.
And these are things that they could do in their,
Anytime.
in their living room or something.
Yep.
Is this something that should be like kept in a personnel file in the clerk's office or not necessarily?
Well,
Or-
Training, but
what I typically
who?
do, what I've done since I've been here, and of course, it's the pleasure of this board, whatever you want to do. If any of my individuals get a training certificate of any way, shape, or form, I usually copy the clerk on that document for their personnel file. And as long as it's not personal data, if it's just pertains to training, I can keep it in the fire department. But if it ain't anything else to do with health or anything like that, all goes to the clerk's office for storage, because I can't do
But I
that.
don't get like the weekly trainings that you guys.
No,
do. don't
I
have
mean,
records of those.
I certainly can provide that if you so desire, but yeah.
So my question of this, chief, is how did you get to 17?
So this encompasses all of our staff paid on call and our trainee.
So we have 5 active paid on call. seven staff, yourself included.
So
So I
there,
guess I'm-
there's more than 5 paid on call. I don't
I'm
have
sure
this,
there are.
I don't have the
I'm saying-
roster in front of me,
Nope.
but we have a total of 24 on the department. And I will say that we've gotten pretty good activity with our level of paid on call. And I hope to get it better.
At the risk-
We have a recommendation from the chief to move forward with an annual subscription of $1,836.30. Did you know which GL that you're gonna be spending this out of?
We took that out of contractual services when we did our,
Professional and contractual?
yes.
Oh, not fire and EMS training.
No, this was professional and
So
contractual.
that would be 205-336-801-000. Professional and contractual. service.
Great to have a young mind.
It's not young,
Sure you got that.
it's falling out by every follow.
Okay, 205-336.
So you're looking for that motion.
801.
801-000.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to follow the recommendation of chief for an annual subscription to Lexipol of $1,836.30. Is there support?
I'll support it.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Is there, just this, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, have we approached either the community foundation or the power plan as a, for a grant on this?
So Supervisor Skibby had written a grant and he's tried to fold that into that grant. However, we do not know the outcome of the status of that grant at this time. But if it does get encompassed with the training materials that we applied for, and he also included this in the grant as well, hopefully we're successful and that can come back into our line item.
Okay,
It was a reimbursement grant. so-
okay, good, because I was gonna say, this is almost this is a perfect one for either one of those other entities.
Yes, look.
Can I amend my motion to include that the amendment be done to the contract for
I
two
kinda-
signatures?
I kind of clarified that, but if you'd like to.
Well,
a
just to-
friendly amendment to
just
the
for
motion to,
clarification.
with the correction to the contract as presented. Are you with the support? Are you friendly? to-
Yes.
Further discussion. Mr. Brooks?
Just noticing the invoice, the chief. And this is a small number, but $170.70 discount, but it's not showing on the invoice that it reduced the price. I think I know your answer,
Oh,
but the invoice is incorrect. It should be 1,700 something, right? Or 600.
1,500.
So it was originally 2007 some odd dollars.
Well, that top number then should be in the dark area, should be that number.
Or the discount.
I didn't add up all those numbers up above 1732.
The three numbers above it have the discount. They're not showing you what the total is before the discount.
If you take $2,007 and minus the 170.70, what do you come up with there? Just real
I
quick.
know, but what they've got is at the bottom, they've got a total of 1836, then they show the discount below that, and then they still show.
I
1836.
completely see what you're saying, and I will get that squared away at the time that we talk now,
So
because I'm gonna have to have them redo
I
the
figured that was
contract
gonna be
anyhow.
your answer was,
So-
It took me a minute to
Well,
flip back
that-
because I was already.
or
past
tell
it.
them
It's
that
just
you want
the
the
way they
170
Right.
off the
This
1836.
is- It's not an invoice. It's just how they're presenting their data.
So obviously with the motion, it's not to exceed $1,836.30. We have any further discussion in regards to this invoice?
I want you to authorize this one stuff.
Seeing none, roll call please.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Chief, just have you actually take point on your fire report.
Okay.
You're up there.
Probably 2 weeks ago or so, myself and Scott Watterson applied for a AAA grant for a JAWS unit. Obviously, it's a $15,000 allowance for that grant. No matching fund, so that would be just a straight grant. Obviously, that'll only buy like the spreader and cutter combination with one ram and some chains. It won't get the whole set, but whatever we can get to advance ourselves a little bit. These are new electric battery operated jaws that are much faster and newer than what we currently have. And it's one of the items that AAA puts high on their priority for a grant opportunity. So we applied for that. I actually spoke to the gentleman that's the coordinator for the grant. We had a lot of conversing back and forth, so we'll just have to wait and see if we are successful in that attempt.
Did you say 15,000?
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
What do we have for jaws now?
Well,
Are they gas powered?
yes, they're old Hearst units. They're about a 1989 vintage that we bought used off another department someplace, and I don't know the exact, but I think we bought them used off the Prescott Fire Department, if I'm not mistaken.
We actually bought, I
It
thought the
wasn't,
last
no.
ones were somewhere in the Walled Lake area.
It was
Okay.
south or something that.
Greater Metro Detroit area, we actually pick up.
We have parts and pieces of jaws sitting out at Station 3, and what we currently have does work, but this new technology out there is much quicker, safer, more reliable than,
Is the cutter also electric powered?
yes. Yeah, they're pretty amazing. So we did receive our 2 positive pressure ventilation fans that the board approved for purchase. They're on the trucks in operational condition. Painting of interior station number 1 here is nearing completion. I wish it was done already, but the way things go, sometimes it doesn't happen the way you want it to. But we're going to get back into that. I'm currently working on job descriptions for deputy chief and captain positions to give to the personnel committee. So if there ever is a time and, sorry.
The board approved the captain position back a year or so ago.
Where they at?
Oh, okay,
I can send them to you again. if you'd like.
okay.
I
That'd be
thought
great.
we had, the captain for sure,
We
but
can't, I don't have a chief
Not
and,
a
but we do, I know we have a captain that was approved by the board.
Perfect. I've
Not
already got
an
a-
individual, just a job description, right?
Well, is there anything outstanding on your report, or are there any questions for Chief for his report? Yes, Russ.
I was just curious, I marked up the 911 director, number 5. Signal problem at our south station, what's that mean?
So I've actually physically seen this and heard it not happen while we were there. We're getting intermittent signal to our station pager where the page is just not working. I'm standing in the building, my page is just not working. Somehow or another, there's some sort of a dead spot that's going on. So I've been in contact with Kim Elke, our 911 director. We have a remedy for the problem. It's an external antenna. And right now I'm currently working on that with her through the County Board of Commissioners to see if they will fund the $300 external antenna. I have Omega Electric, Ryan from Omega Electric had told me that if we get the antenna, they would come and volunteer to put it up on the roof with their lift. So right now we're just trying to see all avenues. My big concern, like I told Ms. Elke, that if I have staff that are supposed to respond to an emergency and we're not getting the page, that's a problem. So, and if I had not witnessed it myself 3 different times with my own pager while the call's been off at that station, in fact, there was 2 of us that had pagers on and the station pager. We never heard the call come through. It came through on our active 911 and 1 portable radio that was left down in the building. So, or we wouldn't have heard the call.
Is that then explain someone from that station not responding to a call a while back?
Well, since I wasn't here, I can't.
That was during your tenure.
Yeah, I can't say for sure what would be the cause.
No, it wasn't.
Well, and that would be, that's,
Just not very long.
we can move forward with that conversation. So I guess best of luck in terms of 911 actually making
But
sure that.
To answer Mr. Reiner's question, it could be a potential problem if somebody doesn't respond, you know what I'm saying? If we don't hear it. One thing I did want to point out, and I sent pictures to the board members, we had an excellent ice rescue training the other night out on the end of Channel Road number 3 in the canal out there. At the conclusion of that training, I had all kinds of videos and pictures and stuff, and I forwarded them to our news reporter here, asking if we could put a story for us in the paper. And the answer was that they're too busy. So I want to let our township residents know what we're doing, but if I can't get the media to deliver that message for me, that poses a little problem. So I don't know how to address that. Maybe I can get.
So did you try WATZ and True North,
Or BKB even. that might be.
WBKB?
And I think that this is a topic best served away from the board, rather
Okay.
than starting to make accusations of media.
Well, I wasn't.
That's a slippery slope.
What I was trying to find out is recommendations to the board, but yeah, you're probably more appropriate that we, have that
Yeah.
some other way. Other than that, the fire truck committee has been actively engaged in looking at different pumper tankers. We have like 4 or 5 different companies that we were looking at, and all are very promising companies. One not so much, but they still had a nice product. This wasn't all. I guess it's the difference between a Chevy Impala and a Chevy Chevette, if you will. There wasn't the quality there. So, but the majority of the committee has really been working hard on researching every line item in the quotes and just trying to proceed so we can present the fire committee with the recommendation down the road.
Yeah, and I would just implore you to curb roadside visits with several staff moving forward. That'd be my recommendation. Any other questions for the chief?
I just wanted to make the comment that our purchasing policy says that anything over 20,000, we have to put an RFP out for.
Yeah, and the one caveat, I think what we had discussed is I forget what the conglomerate is. that would actually-
Sourcewell.
Sourcewell.
So that's a government
Potential.
purchasing that, and I've done a little bit of research, and I could have a one-on-one with you and explain that a little bit better.
No, I understand what that is, but I
Yeah.
just, if we're going on a different route, we have to put an RFP out.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
And they're sealed and.
certainly anything we do would come back to the fire committee as a truck committee,
Who's on the truck committee?
There's got myself, Luke Meisner, Scott Watterson, Tim Muggy, and Matt Klemchak.
Thank you very much, chief.
Thank you.
Any questions for building? We have Kevin with us. We have this economic differential from year to year.
Looks like that's getting better. Look like it's gonna be a good year coming up too.
A lot of work from jobs last month, but there's a lot of talk.
Wonderful.
Yep. So, any other questions for the clerk, treasurer, or supervisor report?
Yeah, I do have one question.
I would hope that you all should have. at least one question.
I knew you were gonna go.
Could you elaborate a little bit on your defeating of the hostile beavers?
Yes, thank you very much for asking the question about the hostile beavers. It was an uphill battle. Many dams had to be portaged.
A good neighbor hockey team.
And the best part is, it didn't fall in our municipality. It fell into a drainage in the industrial park. So I was actually able to contact the chair of the DPW, Sean, I believe Sean McNamara, through the city to address the culvert blockage by those devastating beavers.
Were any beavers damaged?
I don't know I don't know if any beavers were harmed in this process.
Was there a family of them or something?
Could have been.
Could be a family.
Could have been.
Usually 12.
They are no longer a concern, but I
Poor
do
beavers.
appreciate everybody from actually skimming through my department.
You just
report.
wanted to see if we read it, didn't you?
Well, you know what?
We
I'll
were
keep you
always
on your
wondering if you
toes.
guys did read them, so now we
Because you know
know.
what? On any given day, I can go from beavers to fire departments to roosters. and-
Yeah, I noticed the
So-
rooster too. But
I even had to talk about the chief's office reading it. I go, oh, there's a story.
Yeah, so I appreciate you for paying attention. I will continue to do that from time to time. But moving to the water, with our amended agenda. Michelle, would you like to?
Well, as we all know, we've been over our allowance.
Yeah.
And currently we are $182,156.21 over our allowance for the year with the water. They did invoice us for that amount. The cash flow is not there in the water department right now to pay it. So
We do have it in the general.
we do have it in the general. I have talked to MTA about borrowing money from the general to the water fund and to our auditors. Talked to Jim in great detail about it yesterday. He said we just need to bring it to the board to make a motion. And that's what we're here to do. So I can
would you
make
like
a
to make-
motion to move 182,000 from the general fund GL 101,000,001.000 to the water fund GL number 592,000,000,001.000 to be paid back to the general fund as funds become available in the water fund for the purpose of payment to F&V operations in the amount of $182,156.21 from GL number 592-537-801-000 professional and contractual services for the maintenance overage.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support.
Been moved and supported for the discussion.
I guess the discussion would be, this is the second year that we underestimated contractually. So do we re-examine the 250? Do we leave it alone? Do we try to encourage us to slow down a little bit on, I know we can't repair, I know we can't slow down on repair.
So we've already taken some proactive steps.
Mhm.
One, obviously, being the environmental factors that we don't have to get into of why this is occurring at such a rapid rate. We actually did look and explore increasing the O&M aspect budgetarily. And as a catch-all, that's what we're actually looking at, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund as our $15.8 million ask is to actually take away the complete sporadic the inability to actually fund and track appropriately. Instead of chasing our tails day to day, we'd actually have a known factor of a cost repayment with that 15.8, which includes 2,600 service line replacements in that ask. So to actually have a mechanism that is a known will help us budgetarily moving forward. So we've kind of covered every base that we can. The unknown is the unknown of until that water starts breaking the surface of the ground. We don't know.
Yeah.
So I think we've already taken as many proactive steps in a proper sound direction. Yes, Russ.
Well, and that set aside for, it's already exceeded, and this is whatever amount over that we're paying. But we've got until August, do we not?
Correct.
So this is gonna keep coming up monthly,
Yes.
probably.
But it shouldn't be 182,000.
And actually that loan that we're talking about seeking, not talking about, I think we are seeking it. Is not to pay for this kind of stuff, it's to fix the problem, is it not?
Yeah,
So
but fixing 2,600 service lines is where our problem has been. this past
I
year.
understand that. So, but then we're gonna have to go and dig up streets and do all the things that are necessary to actually, what's the term everybody uses, macro way, fix the problem, right? In a global way. And so this is not gonna stop in August. We're gonna be continuing down this road and having this problem.
Yeah, and hopefully with our success of our intent to apply for the SRF funds in the drinking water sector. I think right now we have it categorically started, anticipated potential start date upon approval of, I believe, the third quarter in 2023. So we do have some ground and some time to kind of fill. Our blessing right now is that we should actually see a seasonal decrease in residential service breaks because we've now, for all intent and purpose, have made it through the frost heave. And those leading into fall, coming out of winter, that is the most critical time because the ground's moving so much and the materials are just that frail. That's where we're getting breaks. So should we, hopefully, I'm not gonna say one way or another, they're gonna happen when they happen. What we've done is try to look downstream and then capture the unknowns and make them knowns by having a known funding factor. Is it gonna stop it? No. Hopefully seasonally, we'll have a decrease. But that's a seasonal.
I don't recall why, but this, obviously, this went from September to August, I think, or whatever, for this amount of money budgeted out of the water fund. Should we next time run it look simultaneously with our fiscal year?
The renewal of the contract,
Yeah,
it would be something that I think that would be an option on the table with F&B. I think that in-house, it would make the most sense because it does. It has, I mean, we got state, federal, every municipality that's a partner has a different fiscal. So getting, especially the in-house operations concurrent to our own fiscal would make the most sense. But that's a discussion that.
I just don't know how our general fund's gonna handle this amount plus whatever amounts we have between now and
Well, right now, we're sitting
the end of next
pretty
fiscal year.
sound, especially looking at these expenditures coming out of last fiscal. We have the money to do it. Right now, yeah, it's not gonna stop. This is a Band-Aid to this problem, but we've already looked at what that problem is and found the best solution to the problem as a whole is that macro fix. How do we get from now until that starts? We're gonna have to define. And right now we have a known number, which is our overage to the operations and maintenance, that if we don't take action now, that number is gonna spiral potentially out of control. And I would rather have our books clean coming into this fiscal, knowing where our concerns will lie. Instead of
I'm
looking
feeling
at-
like it's spiraling out of control now, frankly.
Well, everything in this township, Russ, has been spiraling out of control for roughly 20 years. And so we're tasked with fixing every single nuance. And so sometimes every molehill is a mountain. But over the past 5 years, I can say that we've taken a very proactive step as a board. But yeah, every department's it was just a haphazard association of how to put a Band-Aid on a problem and never look downstream of how do you actually get out of the problem to begin with. So we have a motion on the table and support to transfer funds from general in this regard with payments to be made as able, basically out of the water fund. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes,
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. At this point in time, I'll entertain
Steve Lappin.
okay. A motion to go into closed session.
I'd like to make a motion that the township board enter into closed session for the purpose of discussing confidential settlement negotiations with the township attorney in the pending litigation involving the city of Alpena water and sewer rates.
We have a motion on the table to go into closed session. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? None. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes, supervisor Skibby.
Yes. So we are officially back in open session. Is there,
I'd like to make a motion to authorize legal counsel to execute a joint stipulation with the city of Alpena to the Alpena County Circuit Court in the pending litigation to authorize Utility Financial Solution LLC to perform the joint water and sewer rate study, the administrative allocation review, and the proposed water and sewer authority agreement review as per the proposal dated March 14th, 2022, with payment to come from the joint escrow account.
we have a motion on the table. Is there support? It's been moved and
Who
supported.
supported that?
That was trustee Polly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. This is the final opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody online for public comment, please use the bottom pass bar to raise your hand or message us so that we can acknowledge you. Seeing nobody online and nobody present for public comment, we'll move forward to discussion. Is there any further discussion for the good of the order? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have support by you, trustee Lappin?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and support to adjourn. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 2:23. Thank you very much.